So today I am speaking with Joe Hill-Wilson, CEO and co-founder at LearnAmp. Joe, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's excellent to be here. And I know we've been looking to do this for a while, so really nice to be in the room.
Yeah, we have indeed. I'm going to dive right in, if that's okay.
Please.
I'm really keen to talk about what you're doing at LearnAmp. I think also how it aligns to our mission and philosophy at CLO 100. But I guess I'm conscious that right now there's a lot of change in the L&D industry, and probably you could argue a lot of noise as well. How do you see LearnAmp really standing out?
It's a great question. I mean, I think first off, totally agree with you. We're doing a series at the moment, which is really around navigating L&D through disruption, like just the amount that's going on through AI, through future of work, through skills, the economic backdrop. It's just challenging. So I suppose in the positioning of that, we really want to both be a platform and a partner that helps our customers, our partners, to be able to deliver against their strategy through that change. We refer to ourselves as an employee development platform, and we can take quite a holistic view of how do we support an organization through its various maturity stages in implementing, scaling and delivering a really standout employee development strategy. So that might be in the early stages, looking at onboarding and the experience improvements there. It might be about obviously the baselines of compliance, but really what we're trying to do is help businesses to get to a point in which employee development sits at the center of looking at employee journeys and employee experience, and how that can really help to attract, retain, and develop the talent that you've got inside the organization. Because we all know it's important, but really trying to prove how that has an impact on business results and business impact, hard to do. And that's really the game that we're in, and that we're trying to make a name for ourselves in.
That's great. An employee experience, that end-to-end life cycle journey is massive. And I think such an important thing, particularly at times like this of massive change and lots of uncertainty in industries, really important for organizations to focus on that. You mentioned kind of business impact there. I mean, I suppose our mission at CLO 100 is to help L&D have more impact on business goals and the bottom line to ultimately, I suppose, gain more authority in the boardroom when it comes down to it as an L&D leader. I've always been a really big fan of LearnAmp, and I mean, it's a great platform anyway, but one of the features that's always really stood out to me is the ability to kind of connect learning to business KPIs and strategic goals through the platform, which clearly then helps to cement the relevance of learning. How do you, I mean, you've just sort of referenced impact yourself there. How do you help L&D to measure the impact of learning initiatives on business performance?
Well, thank you for always being a kind of fan of ours. And I think if that's interesting you bring that up, because we've known each other for quite a long time, right? In different kind of parts of our careers, your careers, what we've been doing. And actually very early on, we brought the performance aspect into our platform, and we saw it as a core capability, because I've worked in L&D for 16, 17 years before LearnAmp, and I know the challenges of being able to prove your impact, being able to actually justify ROI. Like, it's a difficult thing to do. And these things often sit in quite disparate parts of the organization. And for us, it's about how do we bring those things together in a language that the business actually understands and respects. And I think that's so critical. So our vision is actually at LearnAmp to help organizations and employees to align so that they grow better together. And if you unpack that, what we're really talking about there is we have to take both of those stakeholder groups as seriously as each other, which is the organization has a strategy, it has an intention, it knows where it wants to go, and its people are crucial to that. But how much does it really understand its people's individual strategies and intentions around their careers? And if you can't align those two things, you're going to really struggle to be able to allow both the organization to scale without losing people and treading water. And also individuals need to be aligned to what that business purpose is to understand, well, do I want to still be here? Does that motivate me? Do I want to be engaged in that? And do I want to upskill and develop to be able to achieve that mission that the business sets for me as well? So the alignment between two of those things is crucial for us, and that often shows up in performance. It's like, well, what's the goal then that we're working toward? What's the performance goal for the individual, which is often linked to the business? and then what's the performance or the personal development goal for the individual. And you want those two things to be as aligned as possible so that both sides feel like essentially they're getting what they need from it. And we always talk about like the next part of our vision is the mission, which is to deliver an intuitive, future-proofed offering that really delivers on the core foundations of that employee strategy, which is learning informs development. Development should inform performance, and performance then allows progression to happen. So if you can't actually prove that the L&D activity is actually turning up in performance, then the business isn't invested and won't continue to back it. And the individuals think that they should be spending time doing other things to improve their performance so that they can prove themselves, therefore having progression. And we think if you get that to happen, both the organisation progresses and the individuals inside it progress as well.
I love that. Learning, performance, progression. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's really great to hear you talking about having so much focus on impact and performance of the business. And I don't really know why in this day and age we don't hear more of that still. And I know certainly it's still a challenge, you know, for L&D. And we're working with a lot of our members to sort of understand that better so we can support more. But it's certainly still a challenge. And I think a lot of L&D teams still have a bit of maybe a bit of a branding crisis in their organisations because they're not really yet seen as that function that delivers impact and really supports organisational goals. I think they're still seen a bit as a nice to have function.
I think part of the reason for that is because the metrics that L&D often then associate themselves to or attach themselves to aren't the same metrics the business is talking about day on day out. It's like, how much are we actually putting ourselves in the perspective of a sales leader and really trying to nail our kind of nails, you know, our colours to the mast and saying we're going to improve engagement or delivery of this sale by this much, you know, or whatever the things are around the organisation. I think that works both ways. I think also on the scorecard of the business at the C-suite, where are the people metrics and do they always stay there through turbulent times, you know, and do we really value the impact that they have, or are they one of the first ones to slip? Because we think that there are more important things that impact on commerciality and revenue and operational stuff. And it's like, no, those two things are massively intertwined. The success of the business is the success of its people, but those metrics need to show up in both places, in the people teams and also in the operational C-suite teams.
Totally, yeah, and you know, a lot of our focus actually is around almost helping L&D leaders become more business leader. And you know, doing that through things like commercial awareness and finance for L&D and strategic thinking, you know, all of those things that aren't typically in the kind of learning journey for an L&D professional and an L&D leader. So I think, yeah, the more obviously they can learn that and the more they can, as you said, speak the language of the business, the better that alignment's going to be.
Can I just add to that? Just very quickly. Ultimately, you know, as we think about like organisational design, not just the L&D function, but the people function in general, and also the support services that service the people, are the internal service arm of supporting your customers. So the business has got two sets of customers. It's got its customers that pay the bills, and it's got its customers that deliver the revenue that pay the bills. And the employees are that. And I think we're increasingly seeing that we need to apply the same kind of logic and principles to our people functions. So are we thinking about marketing in learning? Are we thinking about the financial ROI? Are we operating in a way in which we can justify that we scale, that we embed ourselves into daily practices, all of the rest of that? So it's a mirror of each other. And that's why we've always said, you know, employee lifetime value and customer lifetime value are the same thing. They're operating from the same place. You just need people focused on each of those two metrics.
Yeah, I love that. So important. So important. I've always sort of seen it, I think, when I have worked internally in kind of corporates, that, I mean, much like you said, you've got your external customers, your internal customers, and also I would add to that your kind of providers that you work with, almost your partners, and everybody really needs to be treated in the same way for the business to be successful ultimately. Do you have any, I suppose, any kind of real life examples you could maybe share of how you've helped a company, I don't know, improve alignment between learning and kind of business outcomes?
Definitely. Lots, but I'll give you an example. Specsavers that we work with in Australia, New Zealand, when we first started working with them, they were using a fairly kind of traditional LMS, or at least it was being used in a very traditional way. And this was 6 years ago, probably when we first started talking. It was really important for them that they just started to think about how they productize their learning to deliver it as more of an experience and more of a product that they really were going to engage people in. So even as in the early days when we were thinking about the launch, we really spent time thinking about, well, what's the kind of launch communication strategy that sits around this iLearn upgrade? And that's what they used to call the previous platform. They still call the LearnAmp product. So the product stayed the same, but the platform that supports it changed. But that, from a strategic perspective, was an evolution of that product, I suppose. So we even had like things in the launch comms which showed a version of the previous iLearn, kind of tongue in cheek, a little bit looking like an old Mac from the 90s, and then the new version of what was turning up. And it was like, we tried to think of it a bit more like a product launch from Apple. It was like, what's the why? Nice. And, you know, you think about the concentric circles, and it's like, don't sell on the features and benefits, sell on the why this is actually going to help people to enjoy learning, and what the learning is going to do for them in their roles, and what that's then going to do for the business. And then you start to get into purpose and alignment, and you get people excited about it. So I think really that intentionality of how we positioned it and how we launched it from the very first day had a massive impact really on how it was then perceived and how it was received and embedded into the organization. Fast forward 5 or 6 years later, you know, we would not in any way look to take benefit, like praise for this necessarily, but there are strong correlations between the fact that in ANZ, they've steadily moved up the best places to work in the in the Australian market. There's very strong correlations around attrition, around some of their most technical, important roles to retain within the organisation that really facilitate them being able to deliver their services over there. There's been huge cost savings where they used to operate from a model, because they're a franchisee/partnership ownership model. A lot of travel used to happen in terms of people going to stores to train them. Like having a tool that really facilitated learning to live centrally, but in stores and on this digital environment community. Massive changes for them in terms of like just travel costs and then efficiency costs. And also L&D, with all of this time back from not having to spend so much time administrating, started to get a lot more creative around what else they could do. They started introducing VR to the experience. So people now, from a psychological safety perspective, could go and have a practice of what it was like to speak with a customer about new glasses that they were going to buy, rather than having to do that live in front of the customer. So these things have then a real impact on actual delivery and in people's confidence. So there's a kind of I always like to use this a lot internally at LearnAmp as well. Where are we driving the 2 E's? Where are we driving efficiency, and where are we driving experience? Because those two things have a massive impact on your profit margin and ultimately in how people receive your services and your product, and therefore growing revenue. So I think we've done a really good job with them in kind of collaborating and partnering to be able to deliver that over the years.
That sounds brilliant. I love that. I mean, I just love that whole sort of philosophy to the approach of that, and thinking of it as a kind of a product, and focusing on things like how you market it and make sure that the kind of learners are engaged, or the users are going to be engaged, to manage adoption. That's a brilliant example. Loving the VR actually for someone like Specsavers as well. That's a really innovative idea, isn't it? I mean, there's so much you can see with kind of tech now. What we couldn't do 10 years ago that's just seems super easy now. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Examples.
And also it's great, right? Because you've got so many creative people in L&D, right? I used to be an actor. We've got loads of people in our business. We've got people who are used to be ballet dancers, opera singers, like all kinds. And I just think that's quite true of the L&D space in general. And if you can get them out of the admin and get them into the creative, this is some of the conversations we've had as well recently around like AI. It gives a great opportunity to get rid of a layer of stuff that we don't want to do, so we can focus on being more innately human and being more creative and doing stuff that we really love. And I think L&D as a community particularly should embrace that, because there's so much opportunity to do better stuff that is better received, and that we'll all just feel better about ourselves having delivered,
Oh, like 100%. And look, I mean, no one can have a conversation these days, particularly in our industry, without bringing up AI. So as you've already brought it up, I suppose I know we'd had a conversation previously, and you'd mentioned that there was some new AI-enabled technology on the platform. So
Yeah.
how are you using AI to improve I suppose, the learner experience overall?
I mean, just to, I suppose, define what we mean by AI, AI has been around for a long time, right? So in terms of just thinking about like the basics of automation and using machine learning and all the rest of it, that's been in the product for a long time. And I think it has been in other products as well. So there's not that much differentiation there necessarily, although it definitely delivers a lot of value. Then you start looking at Gen AI and you go, okay, well, there's some really quite cool use cases in here, but it becomes a bit reductive, which is about a lot of the use cases that we've seen in the industry are create more content and do lots more content. And like content is definitely not the problem that we had to solve for. It's like there's a proliferation of content. The problem is, do we understand the context of people well enough? And for us, this is where we think we do differentiate. LearnAmp's a broad product, and we focus on understanding the people in the product as much as we can, and understanding the business as well as we can. So going back to this vision of aligning the organisation and the employees in it, the more we can understand about business strategy, the more that we can understand about individuals and their gaps and their aspirations, their intentions. Agentic AI starts to become very interesting because it looks at all of the tools that you have, which we have a lot of, and says, okay, well, we don't want humans to be spending all their time doing these tools. What we need from humans is the direction and the creativity and the intention to say, well, how do we want to use these tools to deliver a fantastic, like aligned experience where both the business and the individuals in it are getting what they want. So agentic for us, we've taken a bit longer in some respects, if we're honest, about delivering it. And some of it's really starting to come through in product now. But agentic is actually about having agents sit across your platform, understanding its various different tasks with an agentic framework that sits over, which uses those agents intelligently. And really the end vision for us is that most of that should be delivered almost through speech. Like you should just be interacting with an agentic agent, like not just a chatbot, but genuinely kind of like a layer over the top of the system, which is almost headless. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you click through. It's like it just exists over the top of the platform. And it's that everyday coach. We've got a partner, Mindstone, and one of the things that they've, I think, helped us with, because we've gone through their own program, to have a bit of a change in our thinking is AI and agentic AI isn't just a tool that you use. It's really a change in approach that day to day, you've got this, hopeful, helpful buddy that augments you to be better at what you do. And that's really what we want LearnAmp to be. We want, our strapline for years has been making life work better. We genuinely just want to improve how people go about their everyday. So some of that is just like, how do I answer that question quicker? How do I get better at this thing that I need to do quickly and in the flow of work? How do I then demonstrate that and evidence that in a way that I can then have a meaningful conversation with my manager, or C-suite can really see the impact of this, these initiatives that we're running around it. And all of those things have to be as easy as possible. You have to take away the friction and just allow people to be able to use these tools so that they can get on with the things that they're really trying to do, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've answered this well enough, but for us, it's about a service element in thinking about how to serve the various stakeholders, learners, managers, C-suite, L&D. And we've got a lot of the tools to do that, but can you do that in a way in which it really meaningfully helps people day to day in their lives?
And I suppose that's going to help sort of streamline learning pathways as well for individuals, because you're able to I mean, some of the things you've referenced there, that's kind of that's gathering data from a lot of different sources as well, so that must naturally enhance kind of suggested pathways for individuals, I'm assuming.
100%. But again, pathways is an interesting concept, right? At the moment in the LMS world, we're so used to seeing this pathway that we're working through, and we kind of do see it like that as well. But we're thinking that that's almost should become more of a career pathway. It's like, are we seeing what the next 6 to 9 months looks like? And we take inspiration internally a lot from tours of duty, some of the stuff that's kind of gone in big businesses before about saying, well, what does the next 9 months look like? And if we can just get you to contract around, yes, you're really happy to stay with the business and be engaged in that next 9-month plan, then everyone's kind of winning. You're focused on the things that are going to deliver the right results for the business. You feel like you're developing, you're getting from it what you want. So this concept of a kind of ever evolving sense of what a 9 months, 6 months could look like for you is really important. And I think the content, the pathways and everything sit within that, but also some of the, conversation cycles with your manager about the reflection moments that you have, about being able to put skills into practice. All of these things are really important parts of what that journey looked like. So to answer your question, definitely. But like L&D, I always kind of refer to L&D, we can't be like octopuses or something like that, where like we've got a million hands doing a million things and we're not experts in everything. So if L&D are more about putting the product on the shelf, and the system is really about understanding, well, what are we trying to achieve and where's everyone at in being able to achieve against that from a skills, competence, performance perspective, then what you need is, well, what are the solutions to upskill people? And that's, I think, where L&D really sits in there. It's like, are we putting on the right events? Are there people that people can connect with to coach or mentor them? Are there piece of content or are there whole modules that people could go through to upskill? But all of that needs to feel agile enough. So we're kind of trying to get away almost from this sense of long form content, like whole pathways you go through or whole big modules. Are we able to create something agilely based on either proactively understanding those gaps and providing a learning experience that helps you to bridge those gaps? Or are we allowing the user themselves, which I think is super interesting, to self-serve and say, okay, I understand where I'm at. I need to get here. What do I need to do? And it might be more that learners start to create their own modules and pathways rather than them being created for them. And I think that needs to change, because at the speed of change that we're moving at now, the acceleration of change in the last 100 years has been crazy. I don't think support services like L&D can keep up with providing a personalised offering to each person, particularly at scale. So it has to be more, it's the other way around, that people are able to self-serve. And that's not just around learning, it's really about their careers. But they have to have the right tools to do that. And that's kind of, again, where we want to sit in this space.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually, on the self-serve front. And I think it's actually really hard these days to have kind of the long career paths. I mean, I remember years ago, we are going back quite a few years now.
We don't need to talk about it.
We don't need to talk about it. We skip over that. Some time ago in the past.
Exactly. A long, long time ago, as they say in Star Wars.
Exactly. Yeah, in a supermarket far, far away. I remember that we'd look at people's kind of career paths and kind of go, oh, well, this is mapped out for you, your career progression for the next 3 to 4 years. Organisations don't have 3 to 4 year business strategies anymore. No, I mean, I'm amazed if someone has one for 12 months, let alone, for 3 or 4 years. So to think that we could predict someone's learning needs for that duration is crazy these days. So I think, it's got to be a lot more agile now. And I mean, you've just given some really great examples of where AI is kind of helping the learner experience and what it can do to enhance that whole experience. How do you see AI helping L&D functions themselves? What do you think L&D can kind of be benefiting from with AI?
Yeah, it's a really good example. It's a really good question, sorry. So if we think that, I think one of the things based on what you just said, the amount of change that's happening, if, let's say, the business strategy is having to evolve all the time to keep up to date with the market and competitors and all the rest of it, trying to then bridge the gap between that business strategy changing and how that trickles down to what everybody's working on to try to keep up and contribute well, that's where we think things like the OKR framework is really helpful. But it's really difficult to keep up to date. So is there ways that AI can start to adapt some of those goals and the OKRs to give people more of a sense of, right, actually things are changing a bit, and this is the change management process that we almost need to go through to keep people aligned, to keep people updated, and to understand what now they need to learn or update themselves around in order to be able to deliver against that. And I think that's it's too difficult a job for, I think, almost any human to try to do without AI now. So I think just managing that change, like one of the greatest things in L&D that's so difficult is just understanding the needs of the business, like constantly being told different things all the time, right? It's like needs analysis is often this 12-month kind of cycle that you go through.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a bit like universities these days. Like people, by the time they finish universities, they haven't learned any of the things that they're going to need once they finish university, right? It's almost impossible. So these nano degrees and kind of micro learning, I think it's getting at the hub of like, well, we've got to break things down in smaller chunks and we've got to be a lot more agile. So that, I do think this is where AI can look at the content you've got, break it up a bit more and provide a different type of product, which is maybe an amalgamation of things that you already had, but the difficulty here is we don't want it to hallucinate, right? So part of what we're looking at in LearnAmp is we've got a RAG architecture, which actually, I won't get too geeky here, but essentially it stops the hallucinations or prevents or reduces the amount of hallucinations that AI has, because it's actually referencing materials that you use. And then it's using those small component parts to bring something else together, like summarizing a response or providing a module based on multiple things that it's found out there. And if you think about that, I think about the whole employee journey. What I would love to see is, imagine if through the interview process, if you're taking a skills-based approach to interviewing, we could actually use that information from interviews to inform what kind of bespoke personalized onboarding experience we might give people. Like, we throw most of the interview notes away. Those are really helpful notes. And could we get people into roles quicker? Could speed to competence be a really important metric we could improve? Because we know the cost of losing someone as an employee is like 2.5 times their salary, as an average. Might be more than that if you take in tacit knowledge and all the rest of it that's hard to replace. So if you could try to then work out, well, where is this person in their career? What do they know? What don't they know? What skills do they have? What skills don't they have? How do we actually then just focus on giving them the bits that they need to get into role and to become effective and contributing to the bottom line, rather than just providing a one-size-fits-all approach? Now, I'm being a bit unfair there. Lots of people, we do lots of things to try to get away from that, but it's almost impossible to do from an L&D perspective without the use of things like AI and technology to try to help to deliver that more personalized experience at scale. So I think that's just an example, but I think there's loads of ways like that. Another one that I really like the idea of is, if you understand, let's say as people are rating their skills, if you constantly understand what the gaps are, in LearnAmp, the skill tags for the content is the same as the skill ratings. So if you've got a bunch of people that are a 4 in, I don't know, robotic engineering, and you don't have any content or any events that match that, you're like, well, we need to go and do that thing because there's nothing for them to engage with. So the insights that might come from the gaps through skills, and then working that back to, well, do we have any coaches who know how to support these people? Or do we have any events set up for people to sign up to? Or do we have any content that's going to help them to be able to self-serve on this? Because if we don't, that's where we should probably be prioritizing, based on knowing that this group of people are really important and fundamental to us developing our product that we're selling or whatever the things are. So I think insight and doing the number crunching at scale and quickly is a massive part of what AI can do, that it's just, again, really difficult for humans to do, I think, at scale and at the speed it's needed.
Agree. And I like your first example, actually, and particularly when you touched on the interview process to be able to tailor onboarding. I think that's a brilliant usage. I was actually at a roundtable event yesterday with some HR people, HR leaders, and the topic was really around skills-based hiring. But probably 90% of the conversation was about how AI is playing a role in basically either writing CVs, applying for CVs, reviewing CVs, how that whole hiring process looks like, what the pros and cons of using AI are. Actually, even someone I think talked about, using AI in exit interviews to gather data, also to help reshape job descriptions. Because how many of us take a job on based on a job description and a month later go, that's not my job.
Totally. Well, and I always love that stat, which is it's 78% of people apparently make up their mind within the first 48 hours whether they're going to stay with you or not. And a big part of that is alignment. Does this feel like the thing that I've just been sold?
Yeah. I wonder about that myself.
but
Only
sorry,
I've sold it to myself.
But I think it's a great example that you're talking about there, which is like, where does AI become just better than humans could be? Not because they're better at the job, it's that there's a consistency. So in the interview process, there's normally like 6 or 8 people or something that get involved, trying to get all of their opinions and all their notes together, and then trying to use that in a meaningful way to provide a better experience to a single person. That's a big ask. But an AI that sits through the whole of that process, just understanding, remembering, gathering all that intel, making some suggestions, that's definitely better. But it's augmenting the humans. It's not replacing them, because the human's still going to be much better than AI interviewing someone, because it's got eyes and ears and it could be in the room and sense the person and know whether they want to sit next to them and work with them and all the rest of that. But all of the stuff that sits around it, that often actually, again, you know, when we're taking notes in interviews, we're not listening. So we're not picking up on the other things that are sometimes really important. Just get an AI to do that for you. So you could be more in the room and be better at what you implicitly are better at.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly find it, you know, really helpful on that kind of admin tools front. And even, you know, you have a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or whatever, and just to get an AI summary afterwards and remind me what my actions were, because I'm useless at making a note of actually actions I've committed to. You know, little things like that are really helpful. But I do sense, and I suppose I want to get your take on this, I do sense that there's, well, firstly, that there's probably a bit of a love and hate situation going on with AI within L&D. I think there's also a bit of fear around it. Can you understand that? And B, I mean, do you see AI overall as a really positive thing for the L&D industry, or do you think that fear is kind of warranted?
That is a big question.
If you could just answer that for us,
yeah,
that'd be great.
I'll just solve that one. I'll just take that off the list, shall I?
Yeah.
I think the problem sits slightly upstream of this, which is, do we even respect the role that L&D play in businesses? I think businesses that do, AI is going to be a great thing for L&D, because they're just going to be able to get on with the stuff they've never been able to get on with, or they're going to be able to deliver the insights quicker, or they're going to be able to focus more time on the creative product building exercises. For the businesses that don't understand why humans in L&D are important, they will probably just see it as a replacement of that resource and headcount in a drive to try and improve margins, which is extremely short-sighted, because I, as a CEO myself, I see it as the opportunity to 5 or 10x people's performance, not to replace them. It's like, because where are you going to get to? If it's just a drive to the bottom, all you're going to do is actually get rid of your differentiating perspective, which are your people, and you'll become the same as everybody else, and then it'll just be a race to who's cheaper. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. So it's how much do we value humans and people in the processes that we have, not just in L&D but in general, right?
Brilliant response. Yeah, you heard it here first, people. This is the answer.
Tick.
That's that one done. We move on to
well, no, but sorry, but therefore, in honesty, the problem is, are we then equipping ourselves to challenge CEOs and CFOs and CTOs to understand that? Because we have to protect our own jobs, right? And if we don't know the answer to this question, and we don't know how to be able to demonstrate the value and be able to also feel confident in where AI is going to support us, not replace us, who's going to do that work for us? You know, I get why people are going to look at that and see the opportunity, but this is for us to kind of fight back a little bit, I think, and kind of go, well, actually, there's a massive opportunity here that we should be seizing.
No, definitely. And look, it was a bit of an unfair question, really, because I think, you know, holistically, there's clearly a bigger conversation there. I mean, we're seeing it in all sorts of industries as well. And I know Hollywood are pretty much fighting back right now. And,
Great example.
You know, needing to protect themselves and their careers quite rightly. And I suppose you could make an argument either way. But, you know, things are evolving like they always have done, and they always will do. So I think regardless of what does happen, I think the more we can know about it, the more we can upskill ourselves. As everything with L&D, we should really be ahead of the game. We should really know what's coming next to be able to support our organisation. So the more we know, the better we can be supportive, I think.
100%. And I love that example because, you know, the creators in this world, and I'm not just biased because, you know, I kind of maybe partly was one at some point. There's nothing more innately human than creativity, right? And artists and musicians and all the rest of it. And they're going like, no, we could end up being replaced, but is that right? Is that what we actually want? Is that going to be better? Like, are we going to generally create anything more interesting as a result of that? Or will we just create the same stuff, but more of it and cheaper, you know? It's like, no, we want creativity still to exist in this space. And I think that's got to be the same in L&D. It's like, we've got to protect our role in innovation and in driving results and people forward. Because the reason I've stayed in L&D so long is I think it's so critical. It's right in the middle engine part of people like innovating the business and keeping the business moving forward and keeping their best talent to do that. Yeah, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I think it's super important.
I agree. So what's next? What's next for LearnAmp?
Honestly, delivering against our product vision. It's massive for us. It's like when we first came into the space, if I'm really honest, there was 4 of us, and we saw some opportunities to improve what we thought was a bit broken around some of the systems that were existingly there. But we've kind of been feeling our way in the early years. You know, we got named as an LXP, didn't really know what an LXP was, neither did the market. They just knew that we had to improve experience. And then we were like, well, LMSs are really important actually, because, you know, they actually deliver the value for the companies, and they're the people that pay the actual, you know, the bills, and then we were looking at performance. And so for us, we've been, you know, almost trying to solve the problems as we've gone through, which is like, how do we really deliver technology that isn't just task delivering? You know, it's like, how do we deliver technology that really has impact, that does make life work better? And for us, it's about, we think that at the core of all of this, it's this alignment piece. It's like, can we really get businesses and their people aligned? Can we help to do that at scale? And how do we keep kind of strategy and tactics and operations moving forward? And we think a lot of that is delivered through employees and their development. So if we can deliver against our vision, we think increasingly, and I don't want to sound too insane in saying this, but I actually think it's about transformation. It's about helping business to keep transforming, moving forward, changing in the way that they need to adapt to what the future looks like. And I think LearnAmp's got a really good opportunity to do that with the tools that we've got at our disposal. But we just need to keep on, you know, deserving the trust of our customers, co-creating with them, actually seeing this happen in businesses, and proving that this does have a real impact, and that people enjoy using our platform, and that they want to keep working with us. Like, if you can't do that, all of the big ideas don't really matter, right? So it's keeping on evolving, staying grounded, keep on being honest, making sure that we're driving impact, and then hopefully we'll get closer and closer to what we're trying to achieve, that we're really passionate about.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that conversation. I mean, business alignment, customer experience, strategy, AI, and even Star Wars. I think next week we'll sort out world peace.
I should have come dressed differently. I'll make sure for Halloween maybe we can do another version.
Yeah, I'll bring the lightsaber.
Please do.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. It's
Thank
really
you
nice
for having
me.
Yeah, you too.